Hey everyone, it's Myriam and welcome to my 5th Inktober video. I'll be honest, this is supposed to be the month I should be able to keep track of time the best, but I'm really not. I'll get really confused about how many videos and drawings and what day it is, and it's just my brain's a bit of a mush right now. So that means I'm going to take it a bit more easily on this video. I'm not going to go into as complicated or deep a topic as I did in my previous Inktober videos. I'm just going to talk about my favourite things, because a few of you have asked to get to know me a bit better, so I'll just talk a little bit about my favourite food and movies and TV shows and the like. But first, before anything, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of you that participated in my sale last week. I'll be upfront right now, I don't think I'll have the time to sit down and tally up everything before the end of October. I just have too much going on right now, I can hardly get enough sleep, so I'm just gonna wait until I have a couple days where I can sit down, print all the postage, package all your lovely prints and originals, and tally up exactly how much profits I've made and how much I can donate. I'll film the process of donating, obviously, so that you guys can see where your money's going and how much we've managed to raise together and what company it is going to, and it all be in a video at the end of October. I hope that's okay with all of you, then, that you don't mind the wait. Those of you who bought originals probably already know that the originals will all be shipped at the end of October because I'll need them to make the booklet. But basically I think I'll probably sit down at the end of October, take a couple days and do like a heavy packaging session where I'll get all your prints done. I need to order them from my printers anyway, but I'll get everything done in a couple of days and I'll keep you guys updated, probably on my Instagram, of the evolution of things. And I'm hoping to be able to get all your prints and originals packaged and shipped by middle of November. So yeah, that's where that's at. That said, obviously all my work will keep going up on my shop, so if any of you guys are interested in buying a few prints or an original, they are all available on my shop. I will also be putting up one listing for 11 by 16 prints of any of my Inktobers, where you just need to mention which number you need in the note to seller, because I think I've only got 2 pieces on my shop who have 11 by 16 prints offered, because I'm not very comfortable. It's a whole other deal with shipping and packaging those, but I'd love to be able to offer some slightly bigger formats, so that will be up this week probably at some point. But anyway, let's jump into talking about a few of my favourite things. I'm not very good at sharing personal-ish stuff on social media. I mean, when it comes to details of my life, I'm not very good at sharing them. I've never really been good at posting pictures of my life or posting selfies or even simply pictures other people talk of me. Anything that's not art related, I'm not very comfortable with posting. It took me a long time to get used to the stories function on Instagram, because I don't know, I think I like seeing snippets of the life of the artists I like, so I don't know why I thought that everyone would probably hate if I did it too, but anyway, I'm getting used to it slowly. I'll never be one that shares a lot of my personal life, but it can be fun sometimes. So I suppose one of the biggest questions when people ask me what my favourite things are is, what do you watch? So what films and what TV shows? And I suppose to start answering that question, I need to tell you about the books I prefer, because I've always been a bookworm. When I was a child, I never had a TV, and I still don't have a TV. I've never actually owned a TV ever. And also we didn't really have a computer, we didn't really have internet. We had like a TV that you can watch cassette tapes and DVDs on, but it wasn't plugged to any network. So we occasionally watched movies on there, but other than that, I was just reading and drawing. That's what I spent my entire life doing when I was a child. And I read so much. I read constantly. I was so well known in my library when I was a kid that I read the entirety of the kids section, and after a while I was kind of looking around trying to find something else to read. And I was very young, I was about probably 12 or 14, and I went over to the people at the library who knew me very well and asked them if I could possibly read some of the adult books, and they kind of said sure, because they trusted me. They knew I was a good kid, and they said sure, as long as, you know, your parents are okay with that and you're not sneaking behind their back and then we get in trouble. So I was like, yeah. I asked my dad, and my dad was absolutely fine with it. And so I started reading all the fantasy novels in the adult section, which might have been a bit premature, maybe. It was intense, and I didn't quite realise how intense it was when I first read it. It's looking back on the experience that I just thought, yeah, maybe I should have slowed down a bit. I was quite young for kind of gory, intense fantasy books. But it worked out just fine. I think I'm an alright human being. I wasn't traumatized by it. If anything, it kind of fueled my imagination, really. And it was wonderful. I remember reading Dune, and it was one of the biggest books I'd read, and I was about 14, I think. And I have vague memories of it. I don't know if you guys have that, when you remember a book that you read a very long time ago and it made a strong impression of you, but you can't for the life of you remember what it's about. Well, the details of it at least. But you can remember very, very, very niche specific things about it. So I remember the spice, and remembering trying to imagine what kind of taste it would have and what kind of colour it was, and I can remember that. I can't remember the storyline, but I can remember very specific details about Dune. And I was so proud of being able to read a 1,000-page book at like 15. So I was into fantasy. That was pretty much all I read ever. It was just fantasy, 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 fantasy all the time. And currently one of my all-time favourite authors is Brandon Sanderson, but I've read pretty much everything he's written so far, and I genuinely adore his work. It's currently the only books I've ever reread again and again. I'm not good at rewatching or rereading stuff, but his books I can reread. And I also love Patrick Rothfuss. I don't know if that's pronounced right, but I also adore his work, and I can't wait for the last book that he needs to write. He needs to write it now, and I can't wait. I don't have anything to read right now. I just haven't found anything fantasy that I'm enjoying right now. I just haven't found anything after Brandon Sanderson and Patrick that I enjoy. So if any of you guys are like me, if you have any recommendations, please give them to me. I am in need of a good thing to read. But me reading a lot of books also meant that I read a lot of what we call bande dessinée in France. That literally translate as comic books, I suppose. That would be the equivalent in America or in England. You don't really have bande dessinée over here. They're not really comic books though. They're a bit of a different kind of style of thing. But they are drawn stories basically, and there's a lot of artists in France who do bande dessinée, and a lot of Belgian artists, and a big artist that in general in art that I adore is Jean Giraud, who's also very well known as Moebius, and he's incredible, and he was, and sadly he's dead, but he was absolutely incredible. His artwork is just mind-blowing. His use of colour and his imagination and everything about it is just absolutely incredible. And he's one of the fathers of bande dessinée, and he's so yeah, that kind of, my love for bande dessinée probably influenced my art quite heavily. And I've always liked drawing, but I think the fact that I read a lot of bande dessinée meant that it influenced me into doing even more of it, and probably nurturing a certain kind of style. And obviously that meant that I liked fantasy films and TV shows also. Although, because I'd read so many books, I think my standards became quite high for storyline and just general aesthetic and imagination, creatures and the like. And so I'm kind of consistently disappointed with the fantasy genre in films and TV shows. I just think that they're not really pushing themselves. Since The Lord of the Rings came out, everything has been used everything has used that as a template, and I think that's a bit reductive. That's not really what fantasy only is, and it's a bit disappointing, and the storylines tend to be a bit boring and cliche and not very explored. The characters just uninteresting, and they're all pretty superficial and boring, and so there's just not that many movies that I actually enjoy in the fantasy genre. But obviously I'm a fan of The Lord of the Rings, and I know there's a lot that could, in the story itself that feels unoriginal now, but Tolkien was a precursor in fantasy, and so to me The Lord of the Rings is a milestone, at least in my life. It's almost the first film I can remember actually getting to the cinema to see. Pretty sure we went to see other things before that, but we didn't actually go to the cinema very much, and so one of my most vivid memories of it was going to see The Lord of the Rings, and I obviously fell in love with Legolas at first sight, and that was it. I was hooked, and it's still one of my favourite films. I still really, really enjoy it. But in more recent history, I'd say Interstellar was a big film that I really, really liked. For some reason it really struck a chord with me. I'm not much of a sci-fi fan. I like sci-fi, but it's never drawn me as much as fantasy has. But that film really, really resonated with me, and I really adored that film. As far as TV shows go, I do enjoy a lot of detective shows and dark. Oddly enough, I like dark detective shows like The Killing and the like, but I can't watch horror. That is one thing that in both films and TV shows and even books, I can't do horror. It's too much for me. It genuinely traumatizes me. I'm incapable of. My imagination is just too rampant, and it genuinely scars me for quite a few days afterwards. So I just can't watch horror, which is ironic considering my job, really. Prosthetics is often related to horror because of how much blood and gore and wounds we do. But I don't even think I could watch a film I work on if I worked on a horror film, which thankfully I haven't. But I don't know if I could watch the film. I'd enjoy working on it. I don't think I'd be able to watch it afterwards, even knowing how things are made. But anyway, that was a little ramble about a couple of my favourite things, books and TV shows and films. If you want me to talk a little bit like that more in future videos, if you want to know a little bit more about what I like, let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to oblige. I always find it a little bit self-indulgent talking about myself, but if you guys like it, I'm happy to do a bit more of it. I need a bit more specific questions though. I'm not very good. I just go into tangents if my imagination is left to itself. But you know that of me if you've watched me for a little while now. Anywho, this was my last 3 Inktober's from day 16 to 18. I hope you guys enjoyed them. I was a little bit burnt out for them, so they were less intricate for me to do than the previous ones, but I still hope that you guys like them. As always, thank you so much for all your support. I love you all. Take really good care of yourselves, and I'll see you someday. Bye everyone.